to the Weekly Compromise, the news station dedicated to keeping you filled in with everything antebellum related. I'm your host, Berit, Serle, and tonight we start off with some breaking news. Notable abolitionist John Brown is wanted for the seizure of a federal armory in Virginia, an attack seemingly against slaveholders in the southern region. We are now considering John Brown one of the most radical abolitionists of the movement, and we have our very own Berit Serle here to give us an in-depth analysis of the man behind the insurrection. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Berit. So, born in 1800, John Brown was raised with a liberal education, at first seeking the practice of ministry throughout his life, and he was dedicated to helping those around him, so he opposed the institution of slavery for a large portion of his life, even customizing his own home and workshop to secretly accommodate slaves on the run. When taken into custody, Brown said, "Now if deemed necessary, that I should forfeit my life for the furtherance of the ends of justice, so let it be done." And I feel as if that segment right there really embodies how he feels towards the cause of abolition. Other anti-slavery figures such as Silas Sewall and James Buchanan Jr. have admitted their support for Barnes, but he will be tried in the South for his misdeeds with little to no congressional interference. Thank you so much, Berit. Yeah, of course, thank you so much for having me. And this is all amidst the recent turmoil caused by Frederick Douglass's recent keynote speech at an annual 4th of July celebration where he begs the question, what to the slave is the 4th of July? I'm joined here by Berit to give me an in-depth analysis of this speech, as well as let me know where exactly Frederick Douglass stands. Hi, Berit. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I really do believe it's important that we understand where Frederick Douglass is coming from and the statements he makes during this speech. Douglass was born into slavery in Maryland, and actually, once he found freedom, he's been working with the abolitionist movement both politically and socially to make headway. Within his speech, Frederick Douglass rightfully criticizes the irony of the 4th of July celebration while still maintaining and expressing his respect for the founding fathers of this nation. Continuously returning to the question of inclusion within the nation's political foundation, Douglass states, "Are the great principles of political freedom and natural justice in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?" This us that Douglass mentions is a subject that he returns to on multiple occasions throughout this speech, and he's referring to former and present-day slaves, a group which he sympathizes with and works very hard to give a voice to. Doing such, he objects to the concept of a freedom-based celebration in the faces of individuals who still bear chains, heavy and grievous. Carefully, he establishes opinion on the founding fathers, who he refers to as truly great men. Douglass respects the founder of the nation as well as the goals they set for America as they brought it to fruition. His only critique is the fact that the possibility for one to grow, develop, and succeed in this nation does not extend to the black man. Douglass does not intend to scrutinize the founding fathers of this nation, but rather their children who were handed the achievements of their predecessors and deny the same ability to a select group of individuals. Frederick Douglass intends not to discount the achievements of America's independence, but rather bring to light that people of color know not such indulgence. Thank you so much, Berit, for that deep dive into this speech, and thank you for coming out here tonight. Both Brown and Douglass are fervent members of the abolitionist movement and have been accused of increasing North versus South regionalist tension, also known as sectionalism. And on the subject of sectionalism, what exactly is it? We have our very own Berit Serle out in public to ask the people, what is sectionalism?
Thank you, Berit. I'm here on the scene to interview the residents of Stillwater, Minnesota, to ask them, what is sectionalism?
Berit.
Define sectionalism.
I'm not sure what that is.
Can you give your best guess at what it means?
Sectionalism. Country divided.
What is sectionalism?
Intercourse between two parents.
No. Can you define sectionalism?
Yeah, I actually can. It's like regionalism. It's like when the states were really interested in their own selves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I actually have an A-push test Tuesday, so...
Oh my God! Can you define sectionalism?
What are you talking about? Can I have it in a sentence?
The Civil War was caused by sectionalism.
Sectionalism, not sexualism?
Define the word sectionalism.
Oh, yeah, totally, Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know what that means. All I'm saying is that segregation in the world was horrible way back when, and it still is, and maybe sectionalism has something to do with it. All that sucked, and I'm for equality.
I'm super drunk. That's fine. Define the word sectionalism. Give your best guess.
Can I ask, sorry, do you know it?
Sexualism.
No. Second question. It's gotten every single person here that we've asked so far. Can you define the word sectionalism?
Sectionalism?
Yes.
I have never actually heard it. Can you use it in a sentence?
The Civil War was caused by sectionalism.
The Civil War was caused by sectionalism, so the different sections, almost like factions, perhaps.
Kind of, yeah.
So you have one section that's believing one thing, and you end up dividing yourself up to the point where you're no longer able to find any common ground.
Absolutely, that is an amazing answer. Well done, well done.
Thank you. White Claw.
White Claw.
Thank you so much for that, Berit. And now returning to everyone's favorite subject of sectionalism. Here we have a painting from the early 1800s done by the American and Prussian artist John Gast. And we have Berit here to fill us in on what exactly are the factors demonstrated in this painting that might have increased sectionalism tension, even way back when. Hey there, Berit. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here with the 1872 painting American Progress by John Gast. The central figure of this piece is an angel, a very intentional decision on Gast's part, obviously solidifying the roots of the idea that manifest destiny was the will of God and his disciples. Let's take a look at a few different principles of art and design and how they apply to this painting, as well as how exactly westward expansion is portrayed. Starting off, what immediately catches my eye is Gast's mature use of contrast, from this side of the painting having very much warm tones, all the way to this left side of the painting here with all these dark, cooler shades, really encapsulating how we thought of the West. One of the main principles of art and design is movement, and that is demonstrated here with all of these subjects all facing the same way, which on a standard compass or map, left would be westward. Something very interesting I've noticed on this darker side of the image here, you can see a lot of depictions of native people as well as wild animals, all shown to be very primitive, seemingly fleeing the lands that they've inhabited. In design, the principle of emphasis is used to highlight important subjects of a piece of art. And if we return to the central image of this angel here, we can see that she's holding a text labeled schoolbook. It's because education was very much seen as power. Lastly, one of my more blatant observations here is the depictions of technology throughout this piece and how they evolve as we move left. There's many modernized pieces of technology such as bridges and steamboats, and then as we move towards more the center of the image, we can see trains starting to slowly branch out their way west. And as we come over here, we're going to much more basic technology, such as stagecoaches, which are some of the technological pieces that we really started the foundations of the country on. Moving west was a big risk because we're leaving all of these modernizations behind. And that's all for Art Talk. Thank you so much, Berit, for having me. Beautifully said, if I do say so myself, and good thing I do. And now we're moving on to Berit with the weather and climate. Alright, if you take a look right here, you can see the formation of some very separate storm systems moving in towards each other with different ESP factors surrounding them and different dependencies as they move inward and butt heads a bit, almost together but not quite and still very much separate. And as they continue to butt heads, they break off again with some precipitation around all sides, and then we come into this heat front that was disrupting for a while before the storms started to calm down. And we think the storms are clearing up, but then they come back around and form this actual mass superstorm, threatening the entirety of the nation's foundation. That's all for the weather today, folks. Please be sure to stay inside because this one's a doozy. And I will see you all next week with the weather and political climate.
Now, sectionalism.
It's not focused.
Guys, he's not. Now, sectionalism is a broad term for the. Now, sectionalism is a broad term for the overall tension in the U.S. during the antebellum, but what are the factors that... Now, sectionalism is a...
Hurry up, I'm cold.
Now, sectionalism is a broad word for the overall tension in the U.S. during the antebellum, but what increased it, and what exactly sparked the eventual war?
I'm in downtown Stillwater to interview the locals and ask them what caused the Civil War.
Berit.
Yeah.
What caused the Civil War?
What caused the Civil War?
Yeah.
The southern states were not amenable to the end of slavery. Anyone that tells you different doesn't have it right.
What caused the Civil War?
I don't know.
I'm here with my manager, Gabby. Hi, Gabby.
Hi.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
What caused the Civil War?
Intolerance.
What caused the Civil War?
What caused the Civil War?
Yeah.
It was the national unrest.
What caused the Civil War?
There's probably 2 states mad at each other.
What?
Okay.
Even though I know that's not right.
That's wrong. All right. What caused the Civil War?
It was the slavery.
The North and the South.
And you didn't want to have slavery.
What caused the Civil War?
Slavery.
Oh, racism.
Slavery.
Slavery. I don't know. We're just running. I don't understand. I don't know where we're going, but we're gonna fight over young people, and we're gonna. What caused the Civil War?
The Civil War actually had multiple causes. A big part of it was actually all about the money and the land at the time, and of course, everybody considers the initial Civil War to be about the need to be independent.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the.
Berit.
While sectionalism serves as an umbrella term for the tension that allowed for the Civil War to persist, what are some of the factors that increase this overarching tension?
Thank you, Berit, for that beautiful segue. And now moving on to the major players, causes, and events of the Civil War. Starting off at the beginning of the country's fruition in 1776, after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, both northern and southern regions found drastically different economic opportunities. With rich, fertile soil and open land, the South resorted to a farming-based economy. And with plentiful materials via forests, large wildlife populations, and caves, the North looked to making a manufacturing-based economy. In the North, they transitioned from the use of skilled artisans and home-owned workshops to the use of factories and unskilled laborers. Benefiting from the inventions of northern individuals, southern capitalists were able to expedite their farming operations, and motivated to create the most drastic profit margins possible, southern magnates sought to cheap labor, first starting with indentured servitude, and then moving on to the institution of slavery, the exploitation and abuse of African people deemed property by all legal means. This exploitation of black people existed until 1875, almost 100 years after the country's formation, and these completely separate economies forming in these completely separate regions drove the feeling of sectionalism. Now moving on, in the early 1800s, new states formed from territories acquired by the U.S. in its expansion westward. In 1819, there was an even balance of free states, those against the practice and usage of slavery, and slave states, those actively practicing and promoting the institution. Seeking to join the country as a slave state, Missouri Territory applied for the admission to the United States. This request angered American Northerners who were opposed to the spread of slavery within the new territories. Congressman James Talmadge Jr. proposed limiting slave trade into the new state by banning new slaves from being brought into Missouri. The eventual compromise made to best appeal to both northern and southern regions was that the Maine Territory would also be added to the Union as a free state. This compromise utilized the remainder of the Louisiana Purchase's land on the southern half, and as governmental systems evolved in the new nation, the concept of popular sovereignty dominated the decision-making on state slavery policies. Into the mid-1800s, more territories sought state recognition. When Kansas was admitted to the U.S. as a state, both pro-slavery and anti-slavery parties rushed to populate the state, as popular sovereignty was the policy. This aggressive push for dominance made on both sides of the political spectrum led to a period of violence known as in the South as Bleeding Kansas, which was a term coined by politicians and the press, where pro-slavery parties attacked anti-slavery parties and facilities. And continuing into the 1830s, politicians grew wary of America's involvement in slavery whilst promoting the ideas of opportunity and freedom in the new nation. Early opposition to slavery was known as gradualism, a process where it was believed that slavery could and would be brought to a gradual end. This movement grew to the goal of attempting to undermine South financial powers as well as the elected government of the region. One of the most direct and notable singular actions was spearheaded by abolitionist John Brown. Enraged with the policies of slavery in the South, Brown seized a federal armory in Harpers Ferry, Virginia, as a means of targeting the slaveholders in the region. Ending with his capture, John Brown was sentenced to death, regretting very little of his actions. Northern entities viewed Brown as a martyr, considering his death to be one whilst fighting for a cause. The South anxiously came to the conclusion that Brown was one of many in the North to start actively opposing the South. Paranoia spiked in the nation, and tension between the regions grew exponentially. In an attempt to compromise once again to preserve the nation's union in the mid-1800s, Henry Clay suggested the fugitive slave law. The North housed abolitionists working to assist runaway slaves and free them in the northern states, and this enraged the South, who believed their property was being unfairly taken. The fugitive slave law's initial intent was to make it easier for southern slave owners to reclaim an escaped slave, but later this law began to be exploited by slaveholders claiming random and even free African Americans were their slaves, and winning in court, seen as a black person was considered 3/5 of a person and unable to testify in self-defense. The assistance of catching a slave became legally mandatory, which angered Northerners. Clay's proposition initially intended to benefit the South, but ended up hurting it more because neutralists in the country took up anti-slavery mindsets. Holding a subconscious fear that this decision would be imminent and affect the country, President James Buchanan prompted the Supreme Court to consider the issue of slavery in the U.S. territories. Hesitant about this decision, the court put it off until it became absolutely necessary, which in this case manifested in the Dred Scott decision in 1857. Raised as a Missourian slave, Dred Scott traveled with his owner to free territory for an extended period of time, where he attempted to sue his owner, claiming that he was now a free man. This issue made it to the Supreme Court and eventually was dispelled in favor of Scott's owner due to the consideration that a black man was only 3/5 of a man. Tension between the U.S.'s regions increased greatly. And this has been an overview of the extreme movements, actions, and people who had a role to play in the Civil War coming to fruition. Ew. This is my bathroom, where the majority of this project is being filmed. Thank you everybody for watching my video for my class project. As a thank you for watching to everybody here, I have a message from a very special guest, and I will be right back after he says a few things.
Hello everyone in Mr. Caballero's 11th grade history class. It's Bill Daniels from Boy Meets World. Thank you, Berit, for inviting me here to wish all your students prosperity and success in school and throughout their lives. I know that Mr. C has worked extremely hard on this assignment, and that he has created a lot of great opportunities for you to learn, such as Wednesday Wisdom. I think education is vital to our society. So remember the words of George Feedy. Believe in yourself, dream, try, do good. Go ponies!
I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Check out my other videos. Leave a like, leave a comment, whatever. Show your friends so everyone's a little educated about the Civil War era.